Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You say so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many accusations they make against you?" But he gave them no answer, not even a single charge. So the governor was greatly amazed. Now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone whom they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you? Jesus Barabbas, or Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him." Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" All of them said, Then he asked, "Why? What evil has been done?" But they shouted all the more. So Pilate saw that he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning. He took some water and he washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." Then the people as a whole answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." So he released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him, and then they led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene named Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to the place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among them by casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then two bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who could destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down. Let God deliver him now, if he wants to. For he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way. From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. At about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried with a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lima sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, this man is calling for Elijah. At once, one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, wait, let us see whether Elijah will come and save him. Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and breathed his last. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After his resurrection, they came out of the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now when the centurion and those with him who were keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were terrified and said, truly, this man was God's Son. Many women were also there looking on from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee and had provided for him. Among them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. Then he rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there sitting opposite the tomb. The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, Sir, we remember what that impostor said while he was still alive. After 3 days he will rise again. Therefore command the tomb to be made secure until the third day. Otherwise his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception would be worse than the first. Pilate said to them, You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can. So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Oh, Lordy, it's a long one. It's a long one today. Now, I was thinking this week, and just thinking about things in general, thinking about Jesus coming into Jerusalem and this group of people going in a line, and it got me to thinking about second lines. Now, I don't know if you know what a second line is, but I'm going to tell you, I'm fascinated by them. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, y'all my witnesses, that when I wake up dead one of these days, if enough of y'all are still ambulatory, right? And if enough of y'all hadn't lost your minds completely, right? I want one. I want a second line. I want the full thing. Now, if you're not familiar with the second line, it's been called the quintessential New Orleans art form, right? It's a jazz funeral without a body. Now, historically, second lines grew out of the African American community as neighborhood celebrations. And the neighborhood organizers would get people together to play music and feed them. And after the Civil War, they used the second lines even as a form of advertising to get people to come out and make them aware of the kind of social aid that was available to him. You know, things like loans, how they could get insurance for themselves or for their business. Now, second lines also were used to honor members within a community. They would honor those who've done great things, but also they honored people who have died. And in time, they began to become used mostly for funerals. Although you can have a second line anytime you want, throw a parade in New Orleans with 30 minutes notice, I think. This is for true. All right, so there are two parts of a second line. The first is made up of the Grand Marshal, right? He's the parade leader who usually is out front of the parade, and he is dressed to the nines. You will find him or her dressed in brightly colored clothing, and often they will have a parasol, an umbrella. They will also sometimes be carrying feathers, right? I see some people joining me. They know what I'm talking about. And they will fan them. All of which is to get attention, to get your attention. And behind them, behind the Grand Marshal, is the jazz band. And they usually have a tuba, a trombone, trumpets, a clarinet, a saxophone, a snare drum, and a bass drum. So after the band, then comes that person or whoever it is that is being honored, and that ends what is called the first line, and then follows the second line. And the second line is composed of all those people who knew there was going to be a parade and prepared for it. So that'd be all the people that come to your funeral, or doesn't necessarily have to be maybe. So I don't know why they come in, but they knew it was going to happen. So they're going to bring their own little parasols, or they're going to bring their own handkerchief, right, to wave in the air as they're marching along. And they're going to start going. They're going to start moving. The band's going to start playing. The Grand Marshal's going to start dancing. Everybody behind him is going to start dancing. And then, if you see a second line, guess what? You can get in it. It's not a closed thing. It's open to everybody. Right? That's right. You hear that? That's the alarm going off. So, the second line's coming along. You may not know where they're going, but if I was in New Orleans and I saw one coming, I'd get in line. Because at the end, it's going to be something fun. I don't know what, but there's going to be some fun along the way because people are dancing, right? They're strutting through town. They're supposed to get people hollering and jiving and grooving. They're supposed to get people in celebratory moods. Now, some of y'all heard me say this. Some of y'all know this. But one of these Palm Sundays, I would like to see us get our second line going right here in Bluff Park. Because it's sort of like a parade. And y'all know we love parade, don't we? We got a float, right? We can do something a little different. Nobody has to march or anything. We just throw everybody on the float with our jazz band. And we can hoop and holler along the way, right? Now, whenever we put this parade together and go parading around the neighborhood, there won't really just be 2 lines. You see, there'll be 3. Because the first will be our Grand Marshal. That's how I imagine the Grand Marshal will move. If it was me, I would do that, but I'd also have some feathers, right? And I'd definitely have a very loud, bright hat. So there'll be the Grand Marshal out front, and then there will be this awesome band that we have slapped together somehow, and hopefully they'll be playing in tune, right? And then there'll be all the people out in the neighborhood who can't miss us and hear all the commotion, and they'll be looking at us thinking, what are these crazy Episcopalians doing now? Right? So then, as I think about that, I think about that this seems to be what's taking place in the gospel, right? That there are really 3 sections of folks here that have formed a parade. Like there are 2 sections in a parade and one that's looking on. So it's clear from the text that, there's a front line. Jesus is the Grand Marshal, right? He's riding on the donkey. And then there are those who are walking in front and in back. They're laying down cloaks before him. They're laying down palm branches. And then finally, there's those folks that have no idea what's going on. Right? They're the ones who are looking on. And I'm going to call these folks city folks. All right? City folks have to be curious, right, about what's going on because it's affecting them, right? They want to know what's going on. Why is traffic held up in the streets, right? I mean, nobody told them that the circus was coming to town. Nobody told them. Nobody told them there was going to be a parade, and they got to get to the dry cleaners, right? It's really inconvenient. But still, they're going to look because they're being held up, right? It doesn't matter what's happening. If there's a line, you're going to try to figure out why you're stuck in it. Well, when they look at it, they can see a man riding on the back of a donkey. And they can see a group of people all around him moving along, paving the way of the city streets. That's weird looking. Right? You can only imagine if you saw this going on, you'd think, man, this is weird. It's not normal. It's out of place and it's out of context. But the city folks would actually have known how to interpret some parts of what they saw with their eyes. You see, in the Near East, it was the custom to cover the pathway of somebody important, to cover over the pathway. Now, all you need to do is think about how we roll out a red carpet for somebody, right? We do that to make them distinct, to honor them. So when they saw that his pathway was being covered in front of him, they would have thought, oh, well, this is somebody important that I should be paying attention to. But then they'd look and they'd be like, hey, who's the guy in the robe? Or who's the guy with the long hair? That guy is wearing Birkenstocks. And he smells like patchouli oil. And why in the world is that cat riding on a donkey? Now, in the context of a war, a king or military leader riding into the field in front of his troops or in front of the enemy troops, that would have been symbolic of something. A guy coming in on a donkey would have meant that they came in peace and they were ready to make a deal, ready to surrender. But last they checked, in the Jerusalem Times, the city folk found that there was no war going on. But the crowd, known of this military tradition, would have asked themselves the next question, which is, who's this king? Who is this guy? My guess is they start judging him, right? They say, he must be from the country. He's not as well heeled as we are, right? Or you must be from some foreign place, right? Now, it would be at that point that I'm sure somebody would have gotten so fed up by not knowing that they would have pulled out their intelligence stones and they start searching for information about him. Right? This is me searching on a stone through Google. All right? Right? They would find it, and then one of them would start reporting. You know how this goes, right? You ask somebody a question, you get curious, you do the search, you get the answer, and then you just start reading out loud. You haven't been asked to read out loud, but you're just going to read out loud. Right? Oh, I see here, this guy's from the country. This Jesus fella, it says he's a woodworker. And it seems like he's trying really hard to be religious. Oh, it says here in this article that he hangs out with a lot of riffraff, so we must be careful around him. He spends time with poor people and lepers and prostitutes and foreigners. And worst of all, he hangs out with tax collectors. This rings a bell. I remember hearing about him. The head rabbi at the big temple downtown, he told Mary Pat that this guy was Trouble. Trouble with a capital T. Despite his reputation, right, we shouldn't be surprised that the city folks in this scene have some questions. Right? After all, inquiring minds want to know. Right? But there's nothing they have heard or nothing they've actually seen, it seems like, that would warrant his entry into the city in this manner as a king coming to surrender or give him credibility for what it appears he is doing. Further, from what we are told, there is really no compelling evidence given to support that his entry in the city, as it is being described, would inspire anyone to get religion. All that they can see is a crazy carpenter, a leader of a cult, pulling some stunt in order to get attention. Now, given all this, I would think that it would get our attention too, right? Jesus is coming into the epicenter of Jewish heritage. This is the place that God founded himself, way back when he was known as Yahweh. He was missing some vowels at that time. Yahweh established it, and then he sent some people to keep building on it. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, y'all might know them, you might have heard of them. The beloved King David, when all times were good in the land. So how could Jesus claim connection to that line of Old Testament greats? I mean, look, he is not showing up in power, right? Not like them. He's weak. He doesn't have any might about him. He's vulnerable. He's showing up not in judgment, but in mercy. Not with vengeance upon his heart, but with it filled with love. So nothing about Jesus at that time coming into Jerusalem would have met with the expectation of the people for their restoration. As I've thought about it, it dawns on me that Jesus lived in a world that is much like our own. A world in which the governing bodies worship strength and power and oppression in order to control people, in order to control the masses and keep them in check. Now, in spite of the world order at that time, And since the time that Jesus entered Jerusalem, hey, Christians have claimed for 2 millennia that through the events that will happen this week, that we will commemorate, through his death and through his crucifixion, that he was not weak, right? He is strong. That following Jesus will lead to one thing. It'll lead to peace. So that faith, the faith we proclaim as Christians, well, stands in contrast to what's taken place in this scene and what has taken place over the course of history and what will continue to take place in the world as long as we allow it to. You see, the world asserts that peace will be found only through the assertion of power. Power carried out through acts of horrific violence in order to make other people conform. If that's achieved, or if they will surrender, if that's achieved, that can lead to peace. But that is, as a friend of mine used to say, stinking thinking. Paul, that's just stinking thinking right there. To get more weight on this point that I'm giving you and to hone it down, I'll quote Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." So, who is this Jesus fellow? See, Jesus really, when you think about him, and as you have known him, well, he's really not the fella that you saw coming. He's really a guy out of context when you focus in on him. He's the guy that will be killed because he told the truth about God, and that threatened some people. He told the truth about God intended for us to treat one another. He's the guy that God chose to send into the world to use to demonstrate to us that God has always loved us. He's the guy who came to show us that God's love above all else in this world is the only hope that we have for our own redemption and our own peace. And what he has asked us to do is simple, which is follow me. We're just supposed to get in the parade. We're supposed to really follow him. If we follow him, you see, darkness will actually be turned into light, oppression will be turned into freedom, and love will conquer hate. We'll all get along. That's who this fellow is, and he's right out there in front of the parade. He's the guy in the bright suit. If y'all have seen the pink hat that somebody bought for Maria to wear at Mardi Gras, that's the hat he's wearing. You might not be able to get that image out of your head. Good, because I don't want you to, because that's the guy you're supposed to be following. He's the guy that's leading the band, that's leading the second line. He's the guy that's supposed to remind you to live. The guy that's supposed to remind you to live and dance your way through this life from cradle to grave, following him and remembering that it is through his love only that peace can be achieved. Amen.